Could superpowers collapse without foreign invasion completely? History answered that shocking question unexpectedly once. The Soviet Union seemed absolutely unstoppable worldwide. Its military inspired fear across continents daily. Thousands of nuclear missiles guarded national borders. Massive armies defended enormous Soviet territories relentlessly. Enemies hesitated, confronting overwhelming Soviet military strength. The world watched dangerous Cold War tensions. Moscow projected confidence through magnificent military parades. Tanks rolled proudly across Red Square annually. Missiles showcased terrifying technological military achievements publicly. Soviet leaders promised endless national prosperity ahead. Reality quietly differed behind official government celebrations. Empty shelves greeted ordinary families every morning. Long bread lines became painfully ordinary everywhere. Citizens waited hours buying simple necessities daily. Parents worried about feeding hungry children consistently. Frustration quietly spread throughout struggling communities nationwide. Factories produced goods nobody truly wanted anymore. Aging machines slowed industrial productivity significantly everywhere. Workers lacked motivation under rigid economic planning. Hard work rarely improved ordinary living conditions. Innovation slowly disappeared beneath bureaucratic control completely. Corruption quietly flourished inside powerful institutions everywhere. Government reports painted unrealistically perfect economic pictures. Truth remained hidden beneath official optimistic statistics. Fear discouraged honest criticism throughout society consistently. Silence became everyone's safest survival strategy daily. Problems accumulated without meaningful lasting solutions ever. Pressure steadily increased beneath peaceful appearances outwardly. Leaders recognized dangerous warning signs too late. The economic foundation weakened year after year. Military strength concealed growing internal vulnerability completely. Appearances deceived even experienced international observers frequently. The Soviet giant slowly lost balance. Few recognized approaching historic transformation immediately everywhere. One leader prepared challenging reforms with courage. His name was Mikhail Gorbachev forever. He inherited enormous, impossible national responsibilities suddenly. Change seemed absolutely necessary for national survival. Old systems resisted meaningful reforms at first. Every decision carried enormous historical consequences ahead. Hope quietly appeared beside growing public uncertainty. Citizens cautiously welcomed promises of meaningful improvements. Nobody imagined what would happen next. Small reforms triggered unexpectedly massive political consequences. Hidden cracks widened beneath powerful Soviet foundations. The future became increasingly difficult predicting accurately. One decision changed countless lives forever afterward. Reform became both solution and danger simultaneously. History approached its unforgettable turning point quietly. The entire world watched Soviet developments carefully. Fear slowly transformed into uncertain, cautious hope. Hope gradually awakened impossible public expectations everywhere. Those expectations soon exceeded government capabilities completely. Every promise demanded immediate, visible, successful results. Results arrived slower than desperate expectations everywhere. Patience disappeared across exhausted Soviet society quickly. The collapse quietly began from within already. Nobody heard the first invisible fracture forming. Everything still looked strong from outside. Inside, everything slowly started falling apart. History prepared one extraordinary, dramatic collapse ahead. The Soviet Union faced impossible choices suddenly. Nothing would remain unchanged afterward. Gorbachev introduced ambitious reforms across Soviet society. Perestroika promised economic restructuring and modernization nationwide. Glasnost encouraged unprecedented openness and public discussion. Citizens finally voiced hidden frustrations openly together. Newspapers published uncomfortable truths without fear increasingly. Long-buried scandals shocked ordinary Soviet readers everywhere. Public trust weakened faster than expected afterward. Questions replaced unquestioning loyalty across society rapidly. Why were stores still completely empty? Why had leaders hidden economic realities? Why were reforms progressing painfully slowly everywhere? Every question demanded difficult, honest government answers. Officials struggled controlling growing public expectations daily. Criticism spread throughout universities and workplaces quickly. Intellectuals demanded deeper democratic political changes immediately. Students organized peaceful discussions across major cities. Workers questioned outdated economic planning systems publicly. National television broadcast previously forbidden political debates. Silence no longer protected failing institutions anymore. Hidden weaknesses became impossible, ignoring forever afterward. Hope transformed into growing national impatience gradually. Economic shortages continued despite ambitious reform efforts. Inflation quietly reduced ordinary families' purchasing power. Frustration overshadowed early optimism across Soviet republics. Baltic republics demanded greater political independence boldly. Lithuania challenged Moscow's centralized authority directly first. Latvia strengthened nationwide independence movements peacefully together. Estonia inspired neighboring republics through determined courage. National identities resurfaced after decades suppressed forcefully. Unity slowly fractured beneath regional aspirations everywhere. Moscow struggled maintaining centralized political control effectively. Local governments gained increasing public support rapidly. Soviet leaders faced impossible competing national demands. Every concession encouraged additional independence movements immediately. Every refusal intensified public dissatisfaction dramatically nationwide. Compromise became increasingly difficult, achieving peacefully together. International observers watched unfolding events with amazement. Cold War politics entered unfamiliar, uncertain territory. Western governments cautiously welcomed Soviet openness diplomatically. Global expectations changed almost overnight, surprisingly everywhere. Old certainties disappeared beneath rapid transformations completely. Fear gradually yielded cautious international optimism instead. Yet deeper crises continued growing silently underneath. Economic recovery remained painfully distant despite reforms. Factories still underperformed national production goals consistently. Food shortages persisted across many Soviet regions. Citizens lost confidence in traditional leadership steadily. Public demonstrations became increasingly common nationwide afterward. The system weakened under mounting relentless pressure. Reform unexpectedly accelerated institutional instability further instead. Gorbachev sought balance between competing powerful forces. That balance proved nearly impossible maintaining successfully. Every solution created unexpected additional complex problems. Every delay fueled greater public frustration daily. The Soviet Union approached dangerous political crossroads. Nobody possessed simple answers anymore anywhere. History moved faster than leaders anticipated completely. Events escaped careful governmental control rapidly thereafter. The greatest crisis still remained approaching ahead. Stronger shocks would soon shake everyone profoundly. The empire stood dangerously close, collapsing already. Few recognized irreversible changes unfolding quietly then. Time favored transformation over rigid tradition increasingly. The countdown toward collapse had begun. History refused turning backward ever again. Another costly burden drained Soviet strength relentlessly. Afghanistan became Moscow's exhausting military nightmare completely. Thousands of soldiers never returned home alive. Families mourned unimaginable, heartbreaking personal losses together. Veterans carried invisible emotional wounds forever afterward. War consumed enormous national financial resources yearly. Economic recovery became increasingly difficult, achieving successfully. Public support weakened after prolonged painful conflict. Citizens questioned endless military sacrifices openly now. Confidence faded inside powerful government institutions gradually. Fear no longer guaranteed unquestioning public obedience. Change became unavoidable despite fierce internal resistance. Independence movements expanded beyond Baltic republics rapidly. Ukraine demanded greater national sovereignty courageously, too. Georgia challenged Moscow with determined political protests. Armenia voiced long-standing historical national aspirations publicly. Republics desired controlling their own futures independently. Soviet unity weakened under relentless political pressure. Moscow struggled answering every growing regional demand. Central authorities slowly lost practical governing power. Economic shortages intensified across countless Soviet communities. Inflation further eroded ordinary household savings dramatically. Empty stores symbolized broken government promises everywhere. Public frustration erupted through peaceful mass demonstrations. Streets filled with determined, hopeful protesters daily. Banners replaced silence throughout Soviet cities increasingly. Citizens demanded freedom alongside economic opportunity immediately. Old slogans inspired almost nobody anymore nationwide. Leaders disagreed over necessary political direction internally. Hardliners resisted every meaningful democratic reform stubbornly. Reformers argued deeper transformation remained absolutely essential. Internal divisions paralyzed effective national leadership completely. Foreign observers sensed historic change approaching rapidly. The Cold War entered unprecedented, uncertain territory. Eastern Europe experienced remarkable political revolutions simultaneously. Communist governments collapsed across neighboring countries quickly. The Berlin Wall eventually fell dramatically too. Soviet influence declined throughout Eastern Europe rapidly. Global politics shifted before everyone's astonished eyes. The balance of power transformed permanently afterward. Moscow could no longer command unquestioned obedience. Authority dissolved beneath overwhelming historical momentum steadily. Every passing month weakened Soviet stability further. Every compromise encouraged greater independence demands elsewhere. Every crackdown damaged public trust even more. Time favored courageous reform over fearful repression. Gorbachev confronted impossible decisions every single day. None offered painless, successful national solutions completely. The empire approached its breaking point silently. Hidden fractures widened beneath enormous political pressure. Millions sensed irreversible change approaching rapidly already. Hope mixed uneasily with growing uncertainty everywhere. Fear lingered despite remarkable political transformations occurring. Nobody knew tomorrow's Soviet Union exactly anymore. The greatest confrontation still awaited everyone ahead. History prepared one decisive, unforgettable turning moment. Powerful forces gathered behind closed government doors. Loyalists feared losing everything they controlled completely. Desperation inspired dangerous political calculations suddenly everywhere. One dramatic gamble changed history forever afterward. The Soviet Union entered its darkest hour. Collapse now seemed frighteningly possible indeed finally. The final chapter approached with unstoppable momentum. Nothing could stop history's relentless march. The decisive moment finally arrived. August 1991 changed everything forever suddenly. Hardline officials launched desperate coup attempt overnight. They imprisoned Gorbachev inside his residence temporarily. Emergency announcements filled television screens across nation. Tanks rolled through Moscow's silent streets cautiously. Citizens awoke, fearing another authoritarian crackdown immediately. Confusion spread faster than official explanations everywhere. Nobody knew whom trusting anymore completely. Then Boris Yeltsin made historic decision courageously. He climbed atop a military tank. Thousands gathered around him with determination united. His speech inspired nationwide resistance against coup. Crowds defended democracy despite overwhelming uncertainty together. Soldiers hesitated confronting unarmed civilians directly anymore. Many refused firing upon fellow citizens. The coup rapidly began collapsing from within. Hardline leaders lost precious momentum completely overnight. Public courage overwhelmed fear unexpectedly everywhere. 3 tense days transformed Soviet history forever. The failed coup weakened central authority dramatically. Republics accelerated independence declarations without hesitation immediately. Lithuania strengthened its sovereign national position confidently. Ukraine prepared historic independence referendum carefully together. Other republics quickly followed similar paths afterward. Moscow watched powerless as unity disappeared gradually. The Soviet map began changing before eyes. Gorbachev returned politically weakened beyond recovery completely. His authority diminished with each passing day. Boris Yeltsin gained unprecedented political influence rapidly. Russia emerged increasingly independent from Soviet institutions. Communist Party power declined across entire Union. Old structures crumbled beneath relentless public pressure. Economic hardship continued worsening everyday life everywhere. Hope mixed painfully with national uncertainty constantly. Families questioned their uncertain future together nightly. Generations witnessed unimaginable historical transformation firsthand completely. Global audiences followed dramatic developments every evening. Newspapers published astonishing headlines across continents daily. Cold War assumptions disappeared almost overnight permanently. The world entered unfamiliar geopolitical realities together. Powerful empires sometimes collapse surprisingly quietly indeed. Not every ending requires massive violent battles. Sometimes systems simply stop functioning altogether gradually. Trust disappears before institutions finally collapse completely. That truth shocked experienced political observers everywhere. The impossible suddenly became undeniable historical reality. Soviet leaders confronted unavoidable final consequences together. Every remaining option carried enormous painful costs. December approached with irreversible political momentum already. One symbolic moment awaited the entire world. History prepared its unforgettable closing scene carefully. Millions watched television with silent anticipation worldwide. A famous flag would soon descend. Another nation would rise immediately afterward. One ceremony would end an empire. One evening would redefine modern global history. The final farewell approached with quiet dignity. No victory parade celebrated this ending anywhere. No final battle decided the outcome. Only history quietly turned another page forever. The last chapter remained moments away now. An empire stood before its conclusion. The world waited in silence together. Nothing would ever feel identical afterward. The end was finally here. December 25th changed global history forever completely. The Kremlin witnessed one unforgettable historic ceremony. Soviet leaders accepted unavoidable political reality peacefully. The famous red flag descended slowly. Silence filled Moscow's cold winter evening completely. Millions watched television without speaking a word. Tears quietly appeared across countless watching faces. One era officially ended that night. Russia's tricolor flag rose above Kremlin proudly. The Soviet Union officially ceased existing forever. 15 independent republics shaped uncertain futures together. The world entered a completely new chapter. No missiles launched across frightened continents anymore. No final battlefield decided humanity's future. An empire disappeared through accumulated internal failures. History sometimes whispers instead of shouting loudly. Military strength alone never guarantees lasting survival. Economic resilience matters equally for every nation. Honest leadership requires listening before crises deepen. Ignored problems eventually become impossible confronting peacefully. Fear cannot replace genuine public trust permanently. Silence never heals hidden national wounds completely. Reform demands courage alongside careful strategic planning. Change without stability carries enormous dangerous risks. Gorbachev sought saving his beloved country faithfully. His reforms produced unintended historic consequences instead. Boris Yeltsin emerged during extraordinary political transformation. New leaders shaped Russia's uncertain future afterward. Families adapted through difficult economic transitions together. Millions faced unfamiliar opportunities and hardships simultaneously. Former Soviet republics followed different national paths. Some prospered while others struggled considerably afterward. Cold War rivalry finally reached its conclusion. Global politics transformed beyond previous expectations completely. Alliances shifted across continents with remarkable speed. History rewarded adaptability over stubborn resistance eventually. Every empire carries invisible internal weaknesses somewhere. Every nation must protect institutional public trust. Powerful walls cannot hide failing foundations forever. Stability requires more than military dominance alone. Prosperity depends upon resilient economic systems continually. Unity depends upon shared hope and purpose. The Soviet collapse reshaped modern international relations. Its lessons remain profoundly relevant today worldwide. Students still study those dramatic events carefully. Historians continue debating important unanswered questions together. One certainty remains impossible denying forever completely. Great powers can unexpectedly fall from within. History belongs neither winners nor losers alone. History belongs courageous people embracing difficult truths. Every generation inherits valuable lessons from predecessors. Every decision shapes tomorrow's historical legacy forever. Wisdom grows through understanding painful past mistakes. Knowledge prevents repeating avoidable national disasters repeatedly. Remember, strength begins inside every society first. Never ignore small cracks beneath foundations again. Small failures eventually create enormous historical consequences. Great civilizations require constant renewal and honesty. The Soviet Union became unforgettable world history. Its story continues teaching humanity every generation. Empires rise through vision and determination together. Empires fall through neglected internal weaknesses eventually. History remembers every important human choice forever. Learn wisely before repeating yesterday's mistakes. The lesson endures beyond every empire.